All right, so we're really diving in today. Trump's reaction to these election subversion accusations from Special Counsel Jack Smith, it's been something else.
Yeah, it's been wild. These are some serious allegations. I mean, we're talking about a 165-page motion from Smith's team that lays out a whole timeline of Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election.
Exactly. And Trump is not holding back on the response. We're seeing fiery Truth Social posts, and he went on quite the rant during a News Nation interview. It's classic Trump, right?
It is. You hit the nail on the head. Every time he faces legal challenges, it's the same playbook, aggressive, tons of counter accusations. The system is rigged against him. But this time, I gotta say, the stakes feel even higher.
No kidding. It's like he's shouting witch hunt from the rooftops.
Yeah.
This is just a politically motivated attack from the Democrats trying to derail his 2024 campaign. That's what he's saying.
And the timing of this document release is interesting, to say the least. We're just a month away from the election. It definitely adds fuel to that fire.
For sure. And he even tried to connect it to Tim Walz's debate performance, like it was planned to overshadow that.
Right.
Which is interesting because he's saying there's nothing new in these documents, but at the same time, he wants the whole case dismissed. So, a little contradictory, don't you think?
Totally. That's where the legal stuff and public perception get intertwined. He's trying to control how people see this whole thing, shifting focus from the actual accusations to, his usual talking points.
Right. And his main point, it seems like, is that he's the real victim here. He's claiming the Democrats are the ones who interfered with the election, weaponizing the Justice Department against him. He even said again that they rigged the 2020 election.
Classic deflection tactic. Go on the attack. By going on the offensive like this, he creates confusion, makes people doubt things, and most of all, fires up his base.
Speaking of firing up the base, some of the things he said on Truth Social and in that News Nation interview are pretty out there. He called Jack Smith deranged. He's accusing the radical left Democrats of being hell-bent on continuing to weaponize the Justice Department. I mean, he's going all in.
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole point. It's inflammatory language designed to get a gut reaction from his supporters to get them energized. He wants to paint himself as a martyr fighting against a corrupt system. An attack on him is an attack on them. That's the idea.
Yeah. And he's already tying all of this back to the 2024 election, of course. Democrats are terrified because he's winning, and they're just desperate to prop up Kamala Harris.
It's all part of the narrative that he's the true frontrunner in all of this, and this is all a smear campaign. A bold strategy, considering how serious the allegations against him are.
Yeah, no kidding. Like he's playing chicken with the entire American public. And speaking of high stakes, one of the most shocking details from these documents is how Trump allegedly reacted to Mike Pence's safety during the January 6th Capitol riot.
Chilling. According to the documents, when he was told that Pence was taken to a secure location during the riot, he just said, "So what?"
So what? It's just, I don't know, to just brush off the safety of his own vice president during an insurrection. That's cold.
It is. Makes you really wonder about his priorities that day, how serious he actually thought it was. And this detail is going to be under a microscope as this moves forward.
Of course.
Okay.
And, you guessed it, Trump's campaign team is singing the same tune. His spokesperson, Stephen Chung, called the whole thing a partisan, unconstitutional witch hunt in a statement to Reuters.
Coordinated. It's a very deliberate defense strategy. If they use the same rhetoric, the hope is that his supporters just discredit the whole investigation.
Just go on the offensive, deflect, and attack. Do you really think that'll work this time, though? These allegations are very serious.
Well, he's had some success with this playbook in the past, controlling the narrative and keeping his supporters engaged. And he's actually claiming that his poll numbers have gone up since these documents came out, which is something.
It's like he's fueled by chaos, But are people really buying it this time?
This does feel different, though, right? This isn't just like those other controversies or scandals. This is about our democracy, like the core of it. And the way he's talking, making himself out to be a victim of a rigged system, that's dangerous. That makes people lose trust.
And it's not just him. His whole campaign is pushing that same line. It's like they're trying to discredit the election before it even happens, whatever the outcome is.
Exactly. If he loses, he can just say it was rigged all along, which is dangerous. It's messing with the foundation of how democracy works.
One thing that stood out to me was in that News Nation interview, he talked about the timing of this document release a lot, like it was all planned to influence the election.
Yeah, he's pushing this idea that it's all a hit job, damage him right before people vote. He even tried to tie it to Kamala Harris's campaign, like the Democrats are trying to make her look better.
So let me get this straight. They're trying to interfere with the election by exposing his attempt to interfere with the election.
Right. It's kind of funny when you put it like that, but we can't just laugh it off, you know? It might not make sense, but it lets him control what people are talking about. He becomes the victor of some big conspiracy. And his base, they eat it up.
This feels familiar, though, right? Didn't something similar happen in 2016 with Hillary Clinton's emails?
Yes. When Comey announced that the FBI was reopening the investigation into her emails, and it happened right before the election, so not exactly the same, but the timing and the fact that it could change how people voted. Similar. Very similar.
And he did win that election. A lot of people think that whole Kwame thing played a big role in that.
It's impossible to know for sure, but it definitely threw a wrench in things. Hurt Clinton's campaign right at the end. The question is, will this do the same thing?
Good question. So if the goal is to sway the election, what does winning even look like for Trump at this point?
Well, it's a few things. One is that it makes people lose faith in the system as a whole. It makes it easier for his supporters to say any outcome they don't like is rigged, this deep state thing they always talk about.
So even if he loses, he wins, kind of?
Exactly. And that's bad news for the peaceful transfer of power, which is kind of important in a democracy. But also, it gets his base fired up to go out and vote.
Which matters in close elections, which is all of them these days.
Right. Even a small change in how many people vote can change everything. It's a risky game he's playing, and our democracy is caught in the middle.
So where do we go from here? What should people be paying attention to as this unfolds?
Don't get lost in the weeds. It's easy to get caught up in all the opinions and speculation, but focus on the facts.
Well, it's hard, right? Everyone's got an opinion.
It is. So make sure you're getting information from a few different sources you trust. Be critical of what you're reading and hearing. And watch out for anything that seems a little too good to be true.
So healthy skepticism is key.
Yes. Don't just assume everything you read is true. Do some digging. Question things. And try to see different sides of the story.
What about the legal side? Any predictions there?
That's the million-dollar question. Will this lead to more charges? How will Trump's lawyers respond? Will this even go to trial before the election? Nobody knows yet.
It really does feel like we're watching this train wreck in slow motion and we can't do anything to stop it.
And that's the thing with the courts, right? They take time. But even if they don't decide anything before the election, the public's already made up their mind, you know? So how are voters reacting to all of this? That's the thing to watch.
Yeah, good point. Are they buying what Trump's selling? Or are they over it? What's the general feeling out there?
It's all over the place, really. Which makes sense. Things are so divided these days. Some polls show his base is more fired up about this than ever. It's like this just confirms everything they've been saying about this deep state thing.
Like throwing gasoline on a fire?
Yeah.
He's really good at turning things around, especially with his core supporters.
He is. But it's not just about getting his own supporters excited. It's also about making sure the other side doesn't vote. You know, if people lose faith in the whole system, they might just stay home on election day.
And that could be all it takes, especially in a close race, which, let's be real, is pretty much every race these days.
Exactly. So we have to pay attention to everything that's going on. The legal stuff, the political games, what the media is saying, and what everyday voters are talking about. It's complicated, but all those things matter.
It's bigger than just one guy, you know?
Yeah.
This is about what we want our country to be, what we value, what the future is going to look like. So given everything we've talked about, what's your most important piece of advice for our listeners?
Stay informed, stay involved, and think for yourself. Don't just read headlines, you know? Really think about what you're seeing and hearing. Question everything. Be open to hearing things that you might not agree with. That's how we protect our democracy and make sure things get better.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as we head into this election, take a deep breath, focus on what's true, and remember that your voice and your vote matter. This whole thing with Trump and these election case filings, it's a lot to take in, but we'll get through it. Stay informed, stay involved, and we'll see you next time.